Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress. Oh, it's getting really close now. Only 10 days till the World Championship match. The first game will be played on November 9th in London between world champion Magnus Carlsen and his challenger Fabiano Caruana. We are continuing the countdown on Chess to Impress by looking at the first 46 events for the World Championship. Carlsen-Caruana is number 47. We have arrived in 2004, where the 14th world champion Vladimir Kramnik defended his title for the first time against the Hungarian Kramnik-Leko. How did this match come about? The World Championship cycle is still split in half. We have the official FIDE World Championship and then the Classical World Championship. And as I mentioned before, in this series we're following the Classical World Championship. The candidates tournament for the next cycle was held in Dortmund in Germany. There were two groups of players. Shirov and Topalov qualified from that group ahead of Gelfand and Lutz. And in the second group, Bareyev and Leko qualified ahead of Adams and Morozevich. Then it went on to candidates matches. Leko beat Shirov 2.5 quite convincingly, and Topalov narrowly beat Bareyev. Leko overcame Topalov in the final and qualified for the match against Kramnik. The match was held in Brissago in Switzerland and was over 14 games. Kramnik, the world champion, started really well by winning the first game, but as you can see, Leko hit back in game 5 and also won game 8. Then a bunch of draws followed, and after 13 games, Leko was ahead 7 points to 6. So Kramnik had to do what only 2 players had been able to do in the history of the World Championship. The second world champion, Emanuel Lasker, won the final game against Karl Schlechter to retain his title, and so did the 13th world champion, Garry Kasparov, in his 1987 match against Karpov. Kramnik needed to win the last game to retain his title, because in case of a 7-7 draw, he would remain world champion. In those days, the world champion had to be defeated. There were no rapid and blitz tiebreaks. Let's have a look at game 14, which was played on the 18th of October 2004. I'm taking the comments from 2 sources, from this book, From London to Elista, written by Yevgeny Bareyev and Ilya Levitov, and also from the magazine New in Chess, where Vladimir Kramnik analyzes this last game. It's quite interesting that his picture is not on the front of this issue of New in Chess. This is young Sergei Karyakin in the picture. Anyway, let's look at the game. e4 from Kramnik, and Leko defended himself with the Caro-Kann. d4, d5 and e5. The only move in this must-win situation, writes Bareyev. Bishop f5, putting the bishop outside of the pawn chain. h4, h6, g4, and now the bishop goes back to d7. Bishop h7 is the other option, but then e6 is a very strong move for white. So bishop back within the pawn chain. Knight d2 from Kramnik, and that was a novelty in 2004 to get out of the opening theory. And Leko responded well. He played c5. If black doesn't play this, he'll soon end up in an inferior and cramped position, writes Bareyev. Kramnik took the pawn, e6, knight b3, and you have to take the pawn back, otherwise black may not regain the pawn. It's not a blunder. Kramnik took the piece, but Leko wins the piece back with queen a5 check. A double attack on king and knight. c3 shielded a check, and Leko takes the piece back. Knight f3 developing, knight e7 developing, bishop d3, knight bc6. Both players put their pieces into the game. Bishop e3 hitting the queen, queen back to a5, queen d2 and knight g6. Here you can take on g6, f takes, ruining black's pawn structure, but Kramnik writes it's out of the question to give up this strong bishop for a crippled knight. So he was not going to do that. He played bishop d4. Leko took, c takes, and the queens came off the board. And Kramnik writes, I was not very happy with the situation as I realized how difficult it would be to win this endgame against a high-class player, and especially against Leko, who is famed for his ability to defend faultlessly in such positions. True, in a decisive game it is far more difficult to do this. Leko played knight f4, rook ac1, and h5. As Kramnik writes, black wants a draw without suffering. By taking on d3 he may get a draw, but will suffer. Knight takes, king takes, and here black has a bad bishop versus a good knight for white, and black will suffer. As said, Leko played h5 instead. Rook hg1 and bishop c6. It looks clumsy, but is probably black's best option to put a bishop there. G takes h5, knight takes h5, and now, very instructively, white is going to open up a second front with b4. Bareyev writes, Kramnik needs to increase the initiative or the position will be rapidly equalized. a6, a4, and king d8. The natural reaction of a tired organism. Black should have tried bishop takes a4, then the rook infiltrates, and black plays bishop b5. That was his best chance. After king d8, Kramnik played knight g5, threatening to take on f7 with a nice fork. So bishop e8 to protect f7, and then b5. Black's position becomes critical, writes Kramnik. Knight f4 and b6. A very important move, fixing the weakness on b7 and securing square c7 for the rook. Write both Kramnik and Bareyev. Leko now took on d3, king takes, and rook c8. Kramnik took. Another exchange, king takes, but Kramnik is not worried about more exchanges. Rook c1 check, bishop c6. Leko cannot allow the rook onto the 7th rank, and knight takes f7. Rook takes h4, taking back the pawn, and knight d6 check. White's minor piece is a lot stronger than black's. The knight is happily jumping around. That bishop on c6 is really just a big pawn in this position. King d8 and rook g1. The most direct way to win, writes Kramnik. White had seen his 34th move already. This is move 31. And Bareyev writes, black has too many weaknesses and this bishop is a terrible piece. Leko gave a check. King e2 and rook a3, looking for counterplay with his rook. There goes a pawn. Leko takes on a4, and the very nice move that Kramnik had foreseen, 34, f2, f4. Kramnik writes, a clear-cut move creating a passed pawn ends the struggle. The threat of f5 is decisive here. Leko gave a check. King f3, another check, and the king goes forward. Rook d3, hitting this pawn. And f5, the decisive move. If you take that pawn, then there is king takes, and for example bishop d7 check, e6, rook check, king g4, and this wins material. Both pieces are hanging. Just to give an example variation. After f5, Leko did not take. On f5 he took on d4 with check. King goes forward again, and now he took on f5. The king infiltrates. In the endgame, the king is a very strong piece. Rook g4, rook c7, rook h4, and the last move of the game and of the 2004 World Championships was knight d6 to f7 check. It's mate in 2. Leko resigned. King e8 is the only move. Then rook c8 check, king d7, and rook d8 is checkmate, an unusual checkmate pattern. And Kramnik had won game 14, had equalized the match 7 points all, and kept his world title. Here is the table once more with the confirmation of the result of game 14 and the final score of 7-all. Grandmaster Bareev wrote, "The closing ceremony was delayed by half an hour. They said they were waiting for Leko to calm down. When he lost, having been a millimetre from eternal glory, this crushed him. He suffered terribly." And if you know anything about sport, then you have some inclination of what poor Peter Leko went through. And then you have to show up to a closing ceremony. It's very cruel. Grandmaster Keen wrote about this last game. "The game itself was a duel of controlled aggression. Despite consistent exchanges throughout the game, Kramnik maintained an iron grip on the position and ultimately blasted his way into the black camp via the dark squares. Taking no account of material sacrifices, it was Kramnik's king that dealt the fatal blow when it marched right into the heart of the opposing position." Nice words. Kramnik himself said, "I had to give everything, especially at the end, to win against such an opponent. Peter Leko is an incredible defender. For me it was more difficult than my match against Kasparov in the year 2000. That's quite a statement. And Leko said, "It was a very hard fight. In the end it was not enough for me to win the title. I'm disappointed, but I'm looking forward to the future. I'm 25 years old and I hope to get a new chance to become world champion." And Leko did get another chance. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll keep counting down towards Carlsen-Caruana with me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. The link to the series of the Carlsen-Caruana countdown is here. And this is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.